Part 1. The Perfect Crime. I'm not a monster. I'm just good at what I do. My name is Richard Clark, and I'm a detective with the Metropolitan Police Department. For the past 20 years, I've solved countless cases, brought justice to countless families, and maintained an impeccable reputation. But there's something else you should know about me. I'm also a killer. It started as an experiment, a test of my abilities. Could I commit the perfect crime and get away with it? The thrill of outsmarting my colleagues, of manipulating the investigation from the inside, was intoxicating. My first victim was a drifter, someone who wouldn't be missed. I planned every detail meticulously, ensuring there were no loose ends. The investigation was swift, the case closed, and no one ever suspected a thing. But once was not enough. The rush of adrenaline, the sense of power, was too addictive to resist. I carefully selected my victims, choosing those who were insignificant, who wouldn't draw too much attention. Each murder was a work of art, a masterpiece of planning and execution. And each time, I was the one who solved the case, basking in the praise and admiration of my peers. For years, I played this deadly game, always staying one step ahead of the investigation. But then I made a mistake. I chose the wrong victim. Part 2. The new case. Her name was Emily Harris, a young woman with a bright future ahead of her. She was a law student, top of her class, with a promising career in criminal justice. But more importantly, she was the daughter of my boss, Chief Inspector Harris. I didn't know that when I chose her. To me, she was just another target, another challenge. I planned her murder with the same precision as all the others, confident that I would once again elude suspicion. But this time, things didn't go as planned. Emily fought back. She scratched my face, leaving deep gouges that I couldn't easily explain. And she screamed. The sound echoed through the empty streets, attracting the attention of a nearby patrol car. I had to flee, leaving her half dead in the alley. The next morning, the entire city was in an uproar. Emily's body had been discovered, and the chief inspector was personally overseeing the investigation. The pressure was immense, the scrutiny intense. For the first time, I felt a flicker of fear. Had I finally made a mistake that would cost me everything? Part 3. The investigation. The investigation moved quickly. Every available officer was assigned to the case, and the media was relentless in its coverage. The city was in a state of panic, and the chief inspector was determined to find the killer. I watched from the inside, playing my part as the dedicated detective. I followed leads, interviewed witnesses, and worked long hours, all the while carefully steering the investigation away from myself. But the scratches on my face were a problem. I had to come up with an explanation, something that would deflect suspicion. I told my colleagues that I had been in a bar fight, that some drunk had taken a swing at me. It wasn't unusual for us to get into scuffles, and the story was plausible enough. But I could see the doubt in their eyes, the unspoken questions. The pressure was mounting, and I knew I had to do something drastic to divert attention. Part 4. The frame. Desperation drove me to take a risk I had never considered before. I decided to frame someone else for the murder. It was a dangerous move, but I saw no other way out. I needed a scapegoat, someone who fit the profile, someone with a criminal record who wouldn't be able to defend themselves. I found my target in Michael Davis, a petty criminal with a history of violence. He had been in and out of prison for years, and no one would question his guilt if the evidence pointed to him. I planted Emily's belongings in his apartment, along with a knife that I had carefully wiped clean of my fingerprints. Then I tipped off my colleagues, leading them straight to Michael. The arrest was swift, and the evidence overwhelming. Michael protested his innocence, but no one believed him. The case was closed, and the city breathed a sigh of relief. But I couldn't relax. The chief inspector was still on edge, still determined to find out who had killed his daughter. And there was something else, something I hadn't anticipated. Emily's fiancé, David, had been quietly conducting his own investigation, determined to find the truth. Part 5. The unraveling. David was relentless. He didn't believe that Michael was the killer, and he refused to let the case go. He started digging into Emily's life, talking to her friends, piecing together a picture of her final days, and he began to notice things, small inconsistencies, that didn't add up. He came to the police station one day, demanding to speak with me. I agreed, hoping to deflect his suspicions. But as we talked, I could see that he was getting closer to the truth. He asked about the scratches on my face, about my whereabouts on the night of the murder. His questions were probing, and I could feel the noose tightening around my neck. I knew I had to act fast. David was becoming a threat, and I couldn't afford to let him continue his investigation. I decided to eliminate him, to make it look like an accident. But David was smart, and he was expecting me. When I followed him one night, he was ready. He confronted me, accusing me of killing Emily. I tried to deny it, to play the innocent, but he had already made up his mind. We fought, and in the struggle, I killed him. But this time, I wasn't careful enough. There were witnesses, and I couldn't cover my tracks. Part 6. The Downfall. The next morning, the news of David's death spread quickly. The chief inspector was devastated, and the city was once again in a state of panic. But this time, the investigation took a different turn. There were witnesses who had seen me with David, who had heard our argument. The evidence was mounting, and I could feel the walls closing in. My colleagues were suspicious, and the chief inspector was relentless. He called me into his office, demanding answers. I tried to bluff my way through, to maintain my innocence, but it was no use. The scratches on my face, the inconsistencies in my story, the evidence at the crime scenes, it all pointed to me. I was arrested, charged with the murders of Emily Harris and David. The trial was swift, the verdict inevitable. I was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As I sit in my cell, I can't help but reflect on the choices that led me here. I was a brilliant detective, a master of manipulation, but in the end, my own arrogance was my downfall. I thought I could commit the perfect crime, but I was wrong. The truth always has a way of coming to light, and now I must pay the price for my actions. But even now, as I face the rest of my life behind bars, I can't help but feel a sense of pride. I outsmarted the system for years, played the game and won. It was only when I let my guard down, when I let my emotions get the best of me, that I was caught. And that, perhaps, is the greatest lesson of all. In the end, it wasn't the evidence or the investigation that brought me down. It was my own hubris, my belief that I was untouchable. And now, as I sit in this cell, I have all the time in the world to reflect on my mistakes, to understand the true cost of my actions. I am Richard Clark, the detective who became a killer, and this is my story.
Share your thoughts below, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can check out more videos like these, right now.